to Tailosive Movie Reviews. Mike, it's been a while. Mike, what day is it?
It's not hump day, but it's
movie review day. Woo!
Yeah. Wow, so excited this morning. I'm guessing you've been doing well, Nick?
I've been doing well. I've been up for about 5 hours this morning. Last night I was going to watch this movie that we were going to watch, but the night got away from me. So I watched it this morning. Last minute Nancy. I definitely am not famous for writing most of my college papers at the moment they're due, because, you know, my creativity is best under pressure. And what movie did we decide to watch today?
So
was it from Pixar?
Darth Maul comes in and he starts attacking Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn.
Is that what the spikes coming out of the flesh was all about? Oh,
I think you got confused with the movie that we're not covering, but I guess we could cover today. It's a certain Hugh Jackman that we're going to be covering. Still another superhero movie.
Huge Jackman. Huge Jackman.
Best joke ever in Night at the Museum. If you've ever seen that, Nick.
Yes, I have.
Goodness. So
that's where I got it from.
Huge Jackman. Are you kidding me?
Not only is it Huge Jackman, it's also Mr. Reynolds, who is honestly one of my favorite actors, and it was fun to see them play in a movie together. What movie did we watch?
We watched the infamous X-Men Origins Wolverine, 2009. I had to rent this. This isn't on Disney Plus yet, so I had to rent it on Amazon and check it out. And man, oh goodness, that was $4 that I could have just dug easily into the pile of DVDs at my mom's house and try to find wherever this is, all covered in mothballs and stuff. Anyways,
convenience, am I right?
I'll ask you, Nick, since you're new to the X-Men universe.
Yes.
What would you rank?
We should cover.
I was going to say, what would you rank out of 8?
Out of 8.
That you'd give this movie?
Well, first off, we should give a little bit of context onto my experience with the X-Men universe, because we were talking about my experience with the X-Men universe off camera after a show a couple weeks ago, and you're like, you haven't seen X-Men? And I'm like, no, I haven't actually. And evidently there is a lot of franchise behind this universe. So it's not that I didn't know they existed. I obviously knew of Dr. What's-His-Face in a wheelchair, and I'd
Professor
seen the
X.
pop culture references. Professor, whatever his face is. Anyway, I knew a little bit. I knew it existed, I guess is probably the best way to say it. I knew there was some guy with knives in his hands, and there's Deadpool was somehow involved. I haven't seen Deadpool, but I've seen enough marketing, and I'm a Ryan Reynolds fan just from Mint Mobile to know that he plays Deadpool. So I had like these little inklings of the X-Men universe, and actually in high school, one of my best friends and I, we had an evening to kill, and we're like, oh, we should go catch a movie, and we're both like, you know, not super gory type of movie enjoyers, and so we went to the movie theater, and we couldn't really find anything we liked. We're like, oh, Logan, I've never heard of that. Have you heard of that? No, I haven't heard of that. Oh, okay, well, let's watch it and see how it goes. Oh my gosh, whoa, that thing was gory. So evidently that's the end of the entire X-Men like timeline, and so somehow I saw the end of it before I actually saw any other things, or even I didn't even know that Logan was a part of the X-Men universe till like halfway through the movie when he started getting the knives out of his hands, and I was like, oh, isn't that the guy from those other films that everyone was always talking about? And then to put a cherry on top of this bad experience, the power went out in our city because there was a huge snowstorm, and I couldn't finish the movie because the screen just went black around the climax. And so I have no idea what happened to the guy who was having migraines and causing electrical shortages, and the guy with knives in his arms. So that was basically where I left the X-Men universe for like 5 years. Like, I really didn't care too much because it's a little gorier than I was used to at the time. I'm a bit more desensitized to it, so I wasn't, puking. But I was close a couple times today. I'm kind of a noob to this stuff. But yeah, so you're like, oh, we should watch the X-Men. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard enough about it. Let's, it'll be a good excuse. We're going to review Star Wars, the prequels, but I didn't have the stomach for that. So we're gonna do this instead.
Arguably worse in many people's opinions.
I know. I was gonna say this movie was probably worse than The Phantom Menace, which is saying a lot.
I think I mentioned off camera it does get better, but
you did. So this is I think you had said this is about the worst that the X-Men universe has to offer. So my expectations are set. I think you said early 2000s action movie is to come, which might be worse. This was at least in the style of action movies of more recent time. But yeah, so overall, you asked me how I'd rate this out of 8. Probably like a 3.5 or a 4. It's really not my kind of movie. I'm sorry, all you X-Men fan who are, typing in the comments. I'm sorry. We only have one person who listens to this show, and I'm pretty sure it's my mother. So there's probably no one writing in the comments below. But if there is, I'm not a huge fan of this style of like gory movie, things coming out of people's arms. I get very squeamish about all that stuff. So I don't have a stomach. But so probably like 3.5 or 4 out of 8. How would you rate this, Mike?
It's been a while since I've watched this movie. I think the last time I saw it was on TV at my friend's house back in 2012. So
wow,
it's been a
little
hot
baby
minute.
Mike.
Oh yeah, I think I was close to graduating high school at that point. But
very baby Mike.
Anyways, it did give me knowing. I think after all these years, a bunch of actors and people, I guess celebrities, seeing all these people in this movie, I'm like, oh wow, it's that guy. It's Danny Hudson, or it's Will.I.am, or I guess Liev Schreiber, who is a pretty good actor as well. Or if you didn't catch, I think it's Dominic Monaghan. He's the guy from Lost. If you ever watched Lost, he's the one dude who...
I haven't watched Lost.
Okay. He's this one guy who's basically in love with this one girl who is pregnant on the flight that falls and crashes on an island, which starts Lost. Anyways, out of 8, yeah, I'd have to say a 3. Maybe a 2.
Ooh, even lower than me.
2 to 3, probably.
2 to 3.
Just because I know the potential of this whole entire franchise. And I know that they could have done so much better. I've got no clue what the director, Gavin Hood, was expecting out of this, along with Dave Beanoff and Skip Woods screenplaying it. I just have no clue what direction they were going, which was just very confusing. They ruined Deadpool from people who know the comics and love the comics. They ruined Deadpool and basically retconned a lot of things. I'm sure you're kind of confused maybe at the end, Nick.
I was extremely confused.
I mean, the end is just a big confusing bag. And you don't have any context for Professor X, but he walks out of the forest at the... spoilers, yeah. I guess.
Hello, spoiler alert. Welcome to Taylor's Movie Reviews.
But yeah, at the end, you have Professor X walking out of the woods or whatever. And you're like, wait, how is he walking? Isn't this guy in a wheelchair? And I guess from the brief time you watched Logan, Nick, you're like, that guy's in a wheelchair. But I guess maybe you chalked it up to, he's old now. It makes sense. I guess he's in a wheelchair. Yeah. But he's never... I mean... These first few movies that we're going to, I guess, look at in the X-Men universe, Professor X isn't supposed to walk around. He's usually wheelchair bound. Okay. So this movie was really strange because, they established a timeline. They established, kind of what goes on with all the characters.
Yeah, it started off in the 1840s. I was like, when it opened and it was 1840 something, I was like,
1845.
Wait, what am I watching? Wait, am I watching a historical documentary? And then the dad dies, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening here?
It's okay. They start running through time as well. I mean, or they don't start running through time.
Literally,
they literally do a montage of them running through all these different. First of all, why are they in all these wars? Is it just because they want to kill people?
Right? I don't know. They're good soldiers, I guess, but...
Who'd want to be in a war? I don't know.
How did they not die before he got infused with the vibranium knockoff?
He still has super healing. Both him and Logan and Victor, or I guess they call Logan as a kid James.
Yes.
I think he chooses the name Logan just to get away from
The trauma.
No, Trauma and Stryker, I believe. Stryker. If you've ever seen Airplane.
I have not.
Oh, okay. There's a scene in Airplane.
I've seen enough clips of it to understand Snake references and autopilot references, but
Snake? That Snake's on a plane.
Oh.
Maybe we need to watch Airplane at some point. That's a pretty good movie.
Maybe that's the next movie we need to watch.
That's very it's so silly. Yeah. Anyways, we're talking about the X-Men Origins.
Look at us getting distracted.
I guess there is some themes that they kind of show in this movie, kind of like through the running scene through the centuries. Like you can kind of see, okay, they're kind of fighting on the good side, or like usually history's version of the good side, right? During the Civil War, they're fighting with the Union. In World War I, they're fighting with the Allies. In World War II, they're also fighting with the U.S. because they're storming the beaches of Normandy. But around that time, you can kind of see with Victor, he's starting to corrupt a little bit. He's getting more into the killing rather than...
It's only been 100 years.
I mean, it's only been like 100 years. But yeah.
It's like, are these guys immortal or what's going on here? Like, that's probably the biggest question mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is kind of the question as well, because...
Do all mutants live so long?
Some. Not all.
Okay.
We'll meet one mutant called Apocalypse, and he basically lives forever as long as he's got a host.
Oh gosh. Ew.
It's not like that. It's not like he's some insect. It's more of...
Okay.
Imagine like Egyptian transferring one life force to another, and then that person is... Yeah, it's basically that.
Okay.
It's got Oscar Isaac in it, which we might get to. The guy who plays in Star Wars Episodes 7, 8, and 9. Anyways, what were your initial impressions of this movie, Nick? I'm very intrigued about what you thought about X-Men Origins and how it's introduced you to the X-Men universe. Because this is a weird one to start on. We could have started on X1, X2, and X3, but instead we started with X-Men Wolverine. But yeah.
Which was entirely your decision, by the way.
I'm trying to go the better route with kind of the Logan trilogy. But
yeah. No, I appreciate it, and I will make it work. I was initially just watching it as a movie and not really trying to fit it into a larger picture. About the time when his girlfriend died, supposedly, which, whatever. I hate it when movies do that. Oh, she died. JK! Ah!
I mean, this whole movie is nothing but tropes of action movies.
Right? It's like pulling a Nick Fury next to a Captain America. It's just like, oh my gosh, stop pretending to die, folks. Yeah. Initially, I was like, okay, I can get into this. Like, you know, it's a good movie. And then, like, they had the totally dumb and over-the-top CGI helicopter battle with the sharpshooter dude and Logan.
Agent Zero.
And Agent Zero. And I was just like... I can't. This is 2009 CG, which really looked like 2006 CG, which, like, oh my gosh. And why? The Agent Zero's just like, pick me up. And the helicopter flies like 300 feet by, and then he just hops in, and I'm just like, what am I watching? Why? Why though? I don't get it. Oh my gosh. I was very confused. And then Agent Zero just shot the nice old couple. I also remember from Logan, he was staying with a nice family, and they died. So basically, like, 2 for 2 here on the Logan franchise, X-Men franchise. You never want to be nice to these people. Just keep them moving. If you be nice to them, you die. That's what my impression was from this. I kind of like that they retconned 3 Mile Island. That was kind of a fun way to kind of have it all blow under the rug, because, you know, if you make your epic action battle at the end of a movie really just a big government cover-up, then no one asks any questions about why this doesn't make any sense, and you can be like, yeah, but 3 Mile Island, government cover-up. Yeah. I was still kind of confused with the concept of mutants. Like, are these like... how do are they born? Are they made? Like, what's the deal with these people?
Yes.
Like,
There's some that are
both.
There's some that are created in a lab, and
like 11.
Kind of like 11, or in Logan. I don't
Was
know
he played by Ryan Reynolds too? I couldn't figure that out.
Yes,
Okay.
Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool and 11 because Deadpool and 11 are the same thing. I don't know if you got the reference, or at least what they thought, or their interpretation of Deadpool is. But Deadpool is like a pool of all these dead mutants with all these powers, and so that's why at the end, Deadpool or 11, however we want to call him, Ryan Reynolds, has his swords in his body, kind of like how Logan has his claws, but then he's also got like the laser beams from Cyclops, except Cyclops never died. We saw that he kind of just was maimed a little bit, but and then he's got disappearing powers like Will.i.am, I guess John Wraith, but I'm just gonna call him Will.i.am at this point. So it's mainly, I think, through people being born, and then it appears at some point, whether as a child or as they're growing up and they somehow find this power. You can maybe tell with like Cyclops, he was kind of growing into it because he's at school with his glasses on. I guess you don't know who Cyclops is, but the kid with the red glasses on in school, it seemed like he was kind of, at least not born into it, but like it kind of came upon him sometime in his aging or growing up.
And it also seems to be something that they don't really want. Like, most of these mutant things don't really, especially with that kid with the sunglasses. Like, I don't know. The movie casts these people in a very sympathetic light, and it's, I don't know, just kind of fell for them. Poor things.
It's kind of the burden that they have to bear in these movies is the typical theme. In X-Men 1, 2, and 3, it's really, it hits home, or not hits home, but it hits that every single movie multiple times. And you kind of get tired of it at some point. Like, yeah, I get it, this person doesn't want powers, but they've got, just use your powers, do something cool.
Well, I think Logan really summed it up pretty well when he was talking to his girlfriend, whose name was Kaya?
Kyla Silverfox.
Kyla Silverfox. Good. All right, that is her. When he was talking to Kyla, Kyla says, "They're a gift. It's a gift, Logan." And he said, "You can return a gift." And I was like, "Ooh, that's good. Good writing. Good job, folks." Yeah. And then kind of like up until the helicopter scene, I was like pretty on board with it. And then after that, it was just like nosedive into oblivion as far as like bad superhero action movie.
You're okay with Deadpool cutting bullets all over the place in that one building at the very beginning where Ryan Reynolds is just spinning his swords like a paddle?
I mean, I have seen Admiral Holdo destroy an entire Starfleet with one hyper jump. So it's not the most unrealistic thing I've seen in cinema. However, I guess maybe I'm suppressing that memory. That was cringy. But I like Ryan Reynolds, so I'm going to forgive anything that his characters do because he's cool. I don't know. That was kind of cringy. That whole journey to Africa. They never. I think they said Lagos, Nigeria once, but like when any character was referring to, they're just like, "Remember Africa?" And I'm like, Africa's a continent, not a country or a city, guys. What are you doing?
Probably just forgot where it was specifically, or they added it in post of just like, "Oh yeah, this actually happens in Lagos." Which, if you wanted to put in the same universe as the Marvel universe, a lot of stuff happens in Lagos, with the Scarlet Witch blowing up a building on accident.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally different.
Is this a part of the MCU now? Like, I know Disney owns it, right?
It is now, but I'm pretty sure.
Work?
So this was owned. This was kind of a question that I think you either brought up at the end of the show or something like that, or after the show a few weeks ago. But it was made by Fox. All these movies that we're watching are made by Fox Entertainment. X-Men was bought by Fox, and Spider-Man was bought by Sony. Fantastic Four also came with the X-Men to Fox.
But the characters were originally Marvel characters?
Yes, these are all Marvel characters that we're looking at.
Okay.
The fact of...
But the Marvel title thing played before the movie.
Indeed, but there wasn't any because it's owned by Marvel Comics, right? Or at least they have to acknowledge that yes, these are Marvel Comics characters because Stan Lee still has a hand in it, right? He's the one, or at least his company created all these characters, so they have to at least include that. But it doesn't have the whole cinematic look that I think was it after Age of Ultron or something like that. They kind of started adopting with the Marvel Entertainment movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is a Marvel movie, but it's a Fox-made Marvel movie where it's not connected. So you're not going to see Iron Man in this. You're not going to see Captain America, Black Widow, or anyone else, or Ultron. No, but one thing that you will see is eventually there's some overlap with the characters. You'll see Quicksilver at some point, which is pretty neat.
Okay.
Because Fox has their
own.
And
is that the same?
They have a different a different actor. So it's not, is it Aaron Johnson, or I forget what his name is, the guy who played Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. They won't have him.
So with WandaVision, though, also spoilers for WandaVision real quick. WandaVision had like a new guy playing it, and like everyone was like, oh, X-Men, something, 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 and I don't really understand what everyone was talking about. Was that the actor who plays Quicksilver in one of these X-Men?
Yes. So we'll see him if we're going along the path that people could probably guess the path that we're going on. We'll probably see him in about 3 movies.
Okay, cool. Interesting.
He has some pretty cool scenes, and it's why everyone kind of freaked out, because he actually... He was made a pretty good character in that movie. And so then bringing him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's like, ooh. Anyways, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. What did you think of it?
Again, yeah, I think what I said at the very beginning, it's been a while since I've seen it. There's a lot of very funny, logical choices that like either the director made, the writers made, or what they think the characters would make. Like, I don't know. There's the scene where Logan is running away from Stryker's facility and he ends up at the old people's farm. And he's running to the barn, and of course you get the scene where the old people are like, there's a naked man running. And then shortly afterward, we've got a shot of the old man with a shotgun going into the barn. Like, I don't think that's maybe something you would do unless you're really overprotective. I would think like you'd maybe go in and check without a shotgun, but I guess, I don't know, this could be a part of the country that is a little bit more defensive and feels a little bit more threatened. Though it's also like 1900s.
Well, you also have a naked man in your barn. I mean,
it is
if
strange.
you saw a naked man running into your garage, I mean, what would you do?
I don't think I'd grab my shotgun necessarily.
I don't know. Okay. I let's say I wouldn't have gone in there with a cup of tea.
Very true. But then shortly afterward, there's the scene with like Logan in the bathroom with his claws, and then he's just like touching them, and they're creating sparks, and it's like, this is not how metal works.
I know. I did notice that, and then like, kind of reminded me. Remember, have you seen the movie Edward Scissorhands?
Yep.
I think this guy was mostly inspired by Edward Scissorhands because there's one scene where, I don't know, I feel like Edward Scissorhands' hands cut things inconvenience. Whenever it's convenient to the plot, they cut things. Well, yeah, he can cut whatever, but like also he can manipulate some things pretty easily, but then other things he has a really difficult time with, like, you know, suspender straps when it's comedic, or sitting in bed with a waterbed. Like, you know, it can be it's like convenient usage of the power. And I feel like Wolverine here has pretty similar convenient usages. Like, I don't know, that whole bathroom scene was kind of played for laughs, I think, but it was just like, this really doesn't fit, and I don't really understand what you're getting at here, because like, if I had razor sharp things coming out of my hands, what are those things called? Claws? Talons?
His claws, yeah.
Claws. If I had razor sharp claws coming out of my finger knuckles, I wouldn't go, "Wah!" in the bathroom and slice everything up. And also, they're not lightsabers, so like, what is this material? Vibranium knockoff? What is this?
So this is adamantium.
Adamantium.
That's kind of the big setup at the beginning, is that the guy is not looking for wealth or diamonds. Stryker. He's not looking for wealth or diamonds with this team. He's looking for this rare element called adamantium, which is basically vibranium, but very strong. And again, the logic of, this would be nice if we pumped it into someone and changed their whole like skeletal, or basically plated their whole skeletal structure with it. That's probably a good idea, right?
Also super easy. You just put 8 needles in a guy in a bathtub, and
The most
works.
painful bath time ever.
Yeah, well, at least the government guys are there, so you know that it's going to be safe. And whenever you see like a panel of army brass people or whatever, like top generals overlooking a scientific experiment on a guy, it's about to go down. Happened in Captain America, happened here. I'm just like, When the guy's like, and we shall have a new superhero, and everyone's like, oh, let's watch that happen. The needles go in, the blue juice goes in, or the adamantium, whatever knockoff of vibranium, and it goes in, and there's dramatic music, and then the smoke comes out, and the bubbles are coming from the water, and then it all happens, and then everyone dies basically, and scurries away. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Captain America, because Wolverine in the comics, Wolverine gets his adamantium skeleton because of Captain America. Notice how I think at one point Stryker's like, Weapon X, and then the government guy's like, Weapon X. He's like, it's a Roman numeral for 10, because it's the 10th try that they've done, and what they're trying at doing is making the ultimate super soldier. And they're trying to replicate what happened to Captain America, at least in the comics. And this, I think it's
so Captain America was the first one?
He was the first one because he got, I think it's Erskine, I forget the scientist's name.
Well, then how's that Zero guy so much younger?
Why?
The sharpshooter.
We don't talk about this again. There's no logic in this movie necessarily.
Okay, cool.
I'm mentioning for comic book history that the reason why Logan was he got this adamantium skeleton is because Stryker wanted to replicate the Captain America experience or whatever, and Logan was successful, quote unquote, but then he just kept on going and went from X11 to everything else. But yeah. There's also a lot of shots that just made me laugh because it's the typical like action movie trope of just like a bunch of Humvees flying everywhere, like going off of big jumps and landing on the road or doing tumbles or whatever. It was just making me laugh during that. I think it was the helicopter scene. I was just laughing so much. Like, what is going on? Like, there's so many like shots that are being cut together of just like Humvees jumping off of berms and skidding.
Explosions.
Oh my goodness! You have no clue what you're looking at for some like 30 seconds at a time, just like, what is happening? And then
more importantly, why is this happening?
Why?
Like, I don't understand. My eyes are bleeding. Make it stop. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think before the I'll stand by my before the helicopter scene. I was pretty happy with the movie. I liked the arc that happened between Logan being in war all of his whole life and then having that chance to say no and walk away from it all and then start this life, which, by the way, his cabin on the mountain,
very
best
beautiful
views ever. I would move there, but it was obvious just a green screen, but still very pretty. And he had that opportunity to kind of start over and start fresh. I think one of the characters was like, "You're making $18,000 a year," and he's like, "18,500, and I haven't had to kill anyone recently." And I'm like, "See, they're redeemable." I like that. I like it when a guy who's portrayed as a bad guy or doing bad things has a chance to do over his life and makes a better choice. And not that he had a ton of choice, it seemed like, because he had to go back to it, and
he never really even wanted to be bad, right? Because
exactly, yeah.
It was the fact of like, oh, this man shot my dad, and then he kills him. It's like, oh wait, you were my dad, and then it's now we're just running away and killing bad guys.
So was that other guy a mutant too? Is it like genetic?
So it's genetic, it's passed down, but sometimes the parents or children don't get the mutation, but someone else does. there's usually a better likelihood that the child gets the mutation from the parent, or, well, of course, because they're being born from the parents. It's likely that it'll appear in the child, but yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in mutant stuff, but they cover.
What? You're not an expert in mutant science? Come on, Mike.
No,
what do we have you on this show for?
I'm just a lowly mechanical engineer. But I was in the original X-Men trilogy. They really hammer in all the specific. It feels like the prequels of X-Men.
Okay.
Of just like the
so
Trade
we'll get the
Federation
talk.
Oh yeah, midichlorian talk. The Trade Federation is blocking our trade routes.
Oh no.
This government litigation on mutants is making it so that we're illegal, and we don't know what to do. Yeah, it gets really in the weeds with those, which is why I thought this is probably the better movie to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say it holds up just by itself as a standalone movie. I have basically no clue about the rest of the franchise, which we'll get to in the future weeks and months, I'm sure. But I think it held up pretty well as a standalone movie. Obviously there's the tropes of an action movie from 2009, but it was a good enough story. It kept me interested, kept me entertained. Didn't really feel like I wasted my time, although I was a little confused in some spots, and probably could have shortened down that helicopter scene by about all of it. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Is there any behind the scenes stuff? I don't know anything behind the scenes. But is there any
I'm sure
interesting?
There is. I don't remember, but I mean, you could tell from many of the shots that there's a lot of CGI. I mean, especially with the last scene, right? The climactic battle between Logan, Victor, and Deadpool, with just fighting on top of a nuclear silo or whatever it is. I forget what they call it. You're already getting bored of this movie. You just
no.
watched
I'm
it.
sorry. It's too early for me. As I record at 10 o'clock.
Gotta get yourself some coffee or tea.
No, we're not sponsored this week by a coffee place. So I can't legally endorse a coffee brand at the moment. I will have some delicious water out of my non-sponsored Yeti mug. That final fight scene definitely went over the top. Them fighting on top of the condensers and radiators, that's not even whoever did this. That's no. Those are pipes basically that are radiating heat. That's what they're doing. It's not a concrete wall.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and
what
also
are you gonna do? It's a movie.
They're all pain resistant, or not pain resistant, but really hard to kill people as well. So you have people just stabbing each. I mean, there's the one scene where Victor basically drives his claws through one side of Deadpool, and then Wolverine gets him on the other side, and Deadpool's just stabbed on both ends, which is a bit gruesome, but it's not as gory as Logan. But still, it's kind of but he's still fine because he can teleport away or.
So, do all mutants have healing powers?
No. So it's very unique to. This was kind of a bad movie to start on if you wanted to start or kind of get to know mutants, because there's a lot of healing factor mutants in this with
all right.
Victor.
We'll hold it. We'll hold it for the next one or whatever. Maybe it'll explain it later.
It gets a little. Yeah.
I was just wait a minute. Why did the guy who can disappear? Why did he die? And why does Logan not? And why does 11 not?
I don't know if you watched.
And 11 was a little girl in the one that I saw, and so I'm just so confused. Or was she 12? Or I don't know.
I think she's.
Was she 12?
She 12 or 13.
Was she 13? Oh,
she could have been 12 or 13. I forget, but no. I mean, I don't know if you watched the end credits scene, because as typical Marvel movies go, there's two end credit scenes to this, which I thought was hilarious for 2009, and one is Stryker walking away because the one lady who was Logan's girlfriend, who was thought to be dead but then was alive, and turned out
really
to
died. Maybe.
Really, no, I think she pretty much died. But she basically tells Stryker to walk until his feet bleed and then keep on walking, which is okay. And then suddenly he gets to one point in the army, he's just like, hey, we need to question you in regards to the death of this general. And then, like, he just stops walking, in which you're like, okay, so it just required someone to talk with him? Okay. Yeah. And then the next scene of Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool and just, like, his head being decapitated in his head, or his hand trying to grab for his head, and he just going, shh. It's like, okay.
Weird.
Just really weird and strange.
I don't know.
Yeah. What'd you think of Gambit, by the way? He was kind of sprinkled in there as well. He's the magic dude who could play with the cards and had his staff and did the really silly thing of climbing up of a brick wall with two halves of his staff, as if like
I thought that was a little dumb. And then he just the exact next scene he was just walking with his feet on the wall, and I was just like, why make a big deal about the sticks if he can just walk on the wall with his feet?
I don't know if you noticed also in that scene, he gets knocked down by Logan's elbow or whatever. He does like a back elbow hit because he needs to fight Victor one-on-one. And then suddenly Gambit disappears from the ground, reappears on the rooftops, starts running on the rooftops, does like the front flip thing, and then lands on the ground and like causes a shockwave. It's like, where did you come from? You were just on the ground.
I've not seen him on IMDb. What's his name?
His what's it called? His character name is Remy LeBeau, and the actor's name is Taylor.
Taylor.
Kitsch.
Okay.
Kitsch. Sorry, Taylor, if you're listening to this at any point. I don't think you will, but if you do, I think you did a great job as Gambit in this movie. I think they got you right, and I wish that they actually went through with, I guess a little fun fact, what kind of spawned from this movie was people saw what they did to Deadpool, and they're like, Deadpool needs to be redone. They need to do Deadpool better. And that's what kind of started this whole kind of cinematic fandom of Deadpool, which finally then, I think at one point, they made a small little trailer thing of it and showed it to some Fox executives, and they're like, okay, I guess we'll greenlight this. And then they released that thing at Comic-Con or wherever, and there's the original trailer for Deadpool. You could probably find it somewhere. It was pretty entertaining, but at the same time, it wasn't just Deadpool who was supposed to get a movie. Gambit was also supposed to get a movie. I think it was supposed to star Channing Tatum, I think. And never happened, or at least still hasn't happened. It's, if anything, still in the works, but yeah.
Interesting.
Anyways,
well, I didn't know anything about Remy or Gambit walking into this, so it was just another mutant. I was like, okay. Also, why do we have over-the-top fight scenes every single time a character interacts with each other? Like, seriously, guys. Like, how does everyone not know of your presence when you're blowing up whatever casino he was in, or you're... or the kid with the school cut the school in half? Like, how is this not like a regular occurrence every day on the news? Like, another mutant has broken a school in half. Like, how do they explain that?
Just wait until the next few movies. It gets bigger.
Oh no,
it gets bigger.
Oh no.
At one point, there's a stadium, and I won't spoil what happens to the stadium.
Don't spoil it.
But
Don't spoil it.
There's a stadium. I'll just leave it there.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, it gets bigger and better, I guess, there. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny. I do really like though how Ryan Reynolds was able to joke around at the beginning there. Like, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Felt genuine Ryan Reynolds. Maybe that's just all the characters he plays on movies are more or less like that, but happy-go-lucky, free, joking kind of guy. Is this the first time that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were in a movie together, or did they have some stage whatever relationship? What do they call it? 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever? Like, had they been in something together before?
I don't know. I honestly have no clue. But
I felt like their charisma was pretty good there at the beginning.
Oh yeah,
it was lots of fun.
With the Victor kind of just being like, "I'm gonna rip you apart," and Logan just being like, "Stop it," and then Deadpool just like, "No, let's do this," and he's like, "Stop it." They definitely play off each other pretty well, and they kind of tease it a lot in the Deadpool movies as well, with like because Hugh Jackman stops being Wolverine at the end of Logan. There's no more Wolverine in the X-Men universe after that. And so with the Deadpool, it's kind of like, oh, what if? Or like, if only we could be... It's almost like Deadpool's lost love is not Wolverine, but Hugh Jackman. And it's pretty hilarious with a lot of scenes that we'll probably see in Deadpool eventually if we ever watch it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's also pretty gruesome. That's probably one of the most gruesome. It's on par with Logan in terms of just gore, of just like, oh,
interesting.
This dude's lost his bottom half. And he's just bloody, and there's things falling out. But he's okay because he's got a healing factor.
Well, good thing the midichlorians are high in his blood count.
Oh, dear Lord. Please stop. We're not even reviewing Star Wars.
No, I cannot wait to hear more about the X-Men universe and taxes and midichlorians. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Oh. So why can't Elevens talk? Like, he didn't have a mouth. Like, why?
So that's something that Stryker noted at the very beginning of the movie, right? Because I think at one point Ryan Reynolds delivers a very hilarious line of he kills all the people besides the one mafia boss in the building. And he's like, okay, people are dead. And then other things like him in the elevator talking endlessly. And I think at the end of that that mission or whatever, Stryker's like, you know, Logan, you'd make a great soldier if you didn't talk so much, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you'd be the perfect soldier if you didn't talk. And so that was kind of the annoying thing a lot of people hated, because Deadpool's really well known for, it's like the Spider-Man isms, or I totally forget the word for it. His one-liners, basically. He's really well known for one-liners and just delivering lines left and right, where it's like, you don't need to say anything. We're in the middle of a fight, but instead it's like, gotcha! Or take this, fart face, or something like that. Stuff like that. Deadpool is known for being very charismatic. And so they shut him up, which was like the dumbest idea by the writers/executives, because that's Deadpool's charm, is being able to talk and just be a wise butt.
Who was the electric guy? What was up with him?
The electric guy?
The guy who can manipulate electricity, or I don't know, turn on and off light bulbs.
Dominic
control things.
Monaghan or whatever. Yeah, I think his name was Chris Bradley or Bolt or whatever. He could just manipulate electricity. I think they're kind of just showing like, he's a super powerful mutant with being able to
like that. That was probably my favorite of all of the mutants I've seen. That was probably my favorite of all of them. I'm like, that would be so nice to, okay, flying would be cool. Okay, maybe being able to heal after mortal wounds in a matter of seconds would be kind of cool. But, like, also just, like, being able to turn off my lights by thinking about it would be kind of convenient.
I think that scene was genius, though, with if you could turn off the light, you get a prize or whatever. And then it's just like, turn off the switch. Nope. Unplug it. Nope. Take out the bulb. Nope.
It's still going.
It's still going. I think I had the same feeling as well when I first watched the movie. It was like, oh, wow, this character's cool. Why'd they kill him off so quickly?
I know. It was like, end of the first act, bam, gone.
In which they never demonstrate. I don't think they demonstrate his powers at all in Deadpool. Or not Deadpool, but I mean, like, in 11, they don't, like, show, oh, yeah, like, he's got the laser beam eyes. He's got the teleportation powers.
Yeah.
And he can also shock or like turn lights on and off, I guess. Which is kind of funny because he wasn't just turning lights on and off. He could actually communicate through the electricity as well. There's a few scenes where he's like, hey, Control's wondering where we are. And Stryker's just like, give him the go around or don't tell him where we are.
Yeah. Well, and hey, I would love to have HomeKit built into my brain. That sounds convenient.
That would be nice.
Turn on and off those light bulbs.
Yeah.
What about that big angry, I want to say Russian guy, the muscle of the group, and he got big blob. Oh my gosh.
Fred Dukes, I believe.
Another nightmare that's going down from X-Men Origins. That was Let's just say not the best fat suit I've ever seen.
Also with the biggest Slurpee ever. Like, that thing is like the size of my head.
I love how Will.i.am's character was just like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get him back in shape. Cut to the guy drinking a Slurpee, and it's like, maybe it's because he's drinking the Slurpee that he's so big. Maybe,
Yeah. And then just all the... I mean, it's, of course, very 2009, where it's just nothing but fat jokes for a good, 5 minutes.
Right. Could you imagine them making that today? Woo.
I mean, you probably could with, some of the movies where it's like, oh, these people go to Vegas, and quirky things happen. And you probably make fun of, maybe some lady trying to go through a window, and she can't because she's larger than the window's opening. Yeah. And then also just you guys just have to box right now because, we're at a lull in the story and we need some action. So you guys fight just for no reason.
We haven't had a fight scene in about 6 seconds. So we gotta pump that back up, get that adrenaline flowing so they don't think about the plot too much. I was always kind of put off by Hugh Jackman. It's like, what's his name? Hugh Jackman's beard. It's like, it always looked very 70s and pretty cringy. But come to find out, this is all taking place in the 70s, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. Okay, supposed to be fashionable at the time, because it ain't too fashionable these days.
Well, I mean, his namesake is also Wolverine, so he's supposed to have very he's got the big whole head of hair and big lamb chops or whatever. So he's supposed to look very animal-like. Because I think in the comics,
they did a good job.
He's got very pointy hair on 2 tips or whatever. But yeah, very interesting. I mean, I never really thought of it from an outside perspective of just why do these people have really weird hairstyles or really weird costumes? And it's not even very quirky costumes necessarily. This is kind of 2009 where no, we're not gonna go with the very silly Fantastic Four spandex suit or I guess a better...
I did appreciate that. I hate it when every single Marvel movie or Endgame, they're oh, got our new suits for this movie so we can sell the merchandise for this movie. It's guys, you all match. It's dumb. Be original. So they were original.
Yeah. I was going to make the comparison to WandaVision with Wanda wearing her original suit from the comics in the Halloween episode with the spandex and the weird crown. She's like, oh, I'm a Sokovian fortune teller. In which she's also a mutant, by the way. So she actually fits into...
Oh, she is?
Yes. There's a timeline...
Well, I thought she was the Scarlet Witch.
She is.
Oh. I'm confused. I need to watch these other mutant movies to figure out how mutants work. So I don't want to pester you with more questions. I want to let the movies describe it to me.
I mean, she's not in these movies, so you don't really get to see Fox's interpretation of her. But at least from the comics point of view, she's the... In Logan, they kind of make the... I forget the... They allude to the fact that Professor X may have been part of killing all the mutants. Because he's old. They kind of allude to that. At least
Professor X is the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah, they kind of allude to something happened with him and the mutants in that movie. Okay. But in the comics, what I think one of the things that happens is that Scarlet Witch does basically the very same thing. She says, I think the words "no more mutants," and then all the mutants are either killed or they lose their powers or something like that.
Wow. So
she's the most powerful mutant. More powerful than I think she's more powerful than Jean Grey, in which we'll see a little bit of her in some of the movies that we watch. But
okay.
Yeah. That's the very confusing thing for a lot of people kind of coming into the Fox universe or just watching any comic book movie, because it's wait, why don't they just ask the Avengers for help? Well, the Avengers don't exist in this timeline because the corporations that are producing these movies aren't very nice together. You can kind of see that with the Spider-Man movies as well, where you get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield not really interacting with anything related to Avengers, and then you get Tom Holland, who's very much Oh, hi, Iron Man.
Mr. Stark.
Mr. Stark.
Mr. Stark.
I have-
Mr. Stark.
I have a frog in my mouth, Mr. Stark.
Mr. Stark. Mr. Stark.
Yeah.
Hey, so I know I'm not super engrossed in this franchise, but walking into this movie, I thought that the Terminator machine thing was in the X-Men universe, and I was pretty confused for a while, like, oh, where's that Terminator guy? Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so I looked it up right after I finished watching this before we hopped on here. And evidently, everybody who might have been thinking this similar to me, Terminator is not in the X-Men universe. So we'll write that down as another franchise I know nothing about.
We can always watch Terminator as well. I don't think I've watched any of the Terminators. Or, like, I've only seen bits and pieces of them. But
I haven't seen any of them either. I saw a trailer for whatever new one that came out a couple years ago, but nothing past
is
that.
that
Yeah, I
Judgment
don't know.
Day or Salvation? There's too many of them.
It's some lady who her arm turned into metal or something. I don't know.
I guess one
Looked
thing
like
I
a
wanted
mutant to me.
ask you is kind of part of the ending of this movie is they shot, or at least Stryker shoots Wolverine in the head twice with adamantium bullets, which one very, very visceral. Like we're gonna
literally a silver bullet.
Adamantium bullet, but yeah, I guess silver bullet.
No, the trope is silver bullet.
Yeah, but
solves the
he's
problems.
not a vampire.
Well, yeah.
Is
His
it a
brother
vampire
looks
or is
like
it a
one.
Wolverine? Or not Wolverine, a werewolf.
Werewolf? I don't know.
Which one do you shoot with the
I
bullet?
can't keep up with all this stuff. I have no idea.
anyways.
I know one has you take a stake to the vampires.
So it has to be the silver bullet to the werewolf.
I don't know.
Anyways, Logan gets shot in the head twice and then just can't remember
Yes.
anything. I was wondering what you thought about that as well. Like they kind of just like retconned 2 or 100 years of his life. Of like, oh yeah, he had all these memories and this past life, and then suddenly, he just forgot all about it.
Well, it makes a ton of sense to kind of do that, right? Because I guess with this movie, it shows tons of backstory, and like I haven't seen whatever next movies in the trilogy, but I'd imagine since it was made before this movie, there isn't a ton of backstory and history that's coming in with Logan. Wolverine. My goodness. So confusing. My brain hurts already. So it was very smart of them to kind of have like the C-3PO mind wipe, like if you remember at the end of episode 3, what's his faces, and have the gold ones mind wiped. And it's like, what? Oh, that makes sense because, they'd know too much in the next one, which came before, and so then it would be confusing. So I guess it makes sense. I think they had foreshadowed it once, like the nurse was like, "No, you can't. He'll lose his memories," or something like that. So, we knew that he'd survive the bullet shots, but his memories wouldn't. So, I guess that meant the stakes weren't very high for me during the very, very, very climactic climax part where he was running up and getting shot. Also, I'm pretty sure that gun only had 6 rounds in the revolving chamber thingy, and I'm pretty sure I counted more than that. I didn't rewatch it to count again, but I think I heard more than 6 rounds go off, so you movie people get on that.
I could have sworn it was 5, but yeah, it could have been like 7 or 8.
Oh, was it 5?
I don't know.
I was just like, I'm pretty sure he's out. Like when the girl was like having him put the gun up, I'm like, I'm 99% sure he was out a while ago. Like, what's going on here?
This isn't John Wick,
actually
sadly,
pull the
where they
trigger.
actually count bullets. I don't know if you've seen John Wick, but they're very attentive to how many bullets John Wick has in his ammo clip or his revolver or whatever.
Well, Agent Zero wasn't counting. It's like,
I mean,
it's like, yeah, out of a Walther PPK with 9 rounds at best and an expanded clip and one in the chamber. Yeah, no, that's not happening.
I mean,
Sorry.
the first scene with him was pretty cool, right? Where he's got 2 guns.
It
in
was
his holster,
cool.
and then he goes back and gets the 2 guns, and then shoots all the soldiers. Which is like, okay, we get it. He's a sharpshooter or whatever. But then,
Yeah.
then it just, like you mentioned, oh, now he could just jump leaps and bounds like Superman into a helicopter. And
I
then
know.
he can survive a
Like-
helicopter crash, but then he can't. I guess we didn't touch on this either. There's just conveniently a fuel trail coming from the helicopter on the gravel, and then Logan's just like, strike the ground, which makes sparks, which then just blows
And
up.
none of the flames in the background ignited the fumes there. It was just his claw that could ignite it. All of the rest of the flames don't count. Oh my gosh. So silly.
It's a mess of a movie.
One of these days. Yeah.
But-
Yeah. Maybe
So-
now we're talking about it, I should downrate it from 3.5 to like 3. Jeez. This was pretty bad.
There's also parts in the movie where I was kind of just paying attention to like things in the background or foreground, things that the viewer isn't supposed to be looking at. Like
Yeah.
one good, I think this is maybe an obvious one where all the kids are running to Professor X at the end in his weird helicopter, and like you could totally tell that the helicopter's CG, the forest is CG, Patrick Stewart is CG, and these kids are
Yeah.
running into a blue screen or something like that. But yeah, and then there's another one where like this one's not really as technical. It's more of just they couldn't reshoot it again for some reason. I don't know, where Kayla at the end is being kind of cradled by, or not cradled, but inspected by Wolverine after he's gotten shot and has forgotten her. And you can see her breathing, which I'm just like, oh, look, she's alive.
Maybe that's why we were thinking she might not have died the second time again. Yeah. Wow. So it took me out of the mise en scène of the movie twice that I specifically remember. Once was when they were going into Lagos, Nigeria. Or no. Where's the first? That was the military installation where the diamonds were. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They had like a obviously CG like nightscape of the city, and then they went down into like a little. It was all supposed to be one shot into like an alley, and then it like panned down to the heroes, but the ground where the characters were standing wasn't matching with the ground of the buildings, and so like it was so obvious, and I'm just sitting there like looking at my computer screen with veins popping out of my forehead like, frick, it's the angle of perspective, guys, come on. I know you'll have to like re-render the 3D scene, but like just get the angles right. Yeah, it's so obvious. And then another thing that really took me out of the mise en scène is whenever we were just talking about him,
Agent Zero, Deadpool,
guy,
Wolverine, Victor.
No, sorry, the guy with the stick that got broken in half.
Gambit.
Gambit. Yeah, when Gambit threw Logan out of the wall, and Logan was on the ground outside in the alley, and he was like, and there's like dollar bills fluttering around him. There's a dollar bill that was close enough to his face that it was in focus, but it was so obvious that it's just a piece of paper that has like a dollar bill printed on it. Like, it is not the right size. It's not the right color. It's not the right, and like the border, and I'm like, that is so fake. Oh my gosh.
They're on a budget, Nick, right? I mean,
I know. They can't just actually destroy tens of thousands of dollars, but still, guys, come on. Oh, yeah. I know there's a lot of moving parts on a movie set, so they did a pretty good job.
yeah.
But
I mean, it wasn't just
those
the
little things always stand out.
It
It's
wasn't
fun to
just the
point 'em out.
cinematography that struggled, but also the choreography as well. It felt very bland, or just like, I don't know. There was, I think the ending fight scene of Deadpool kind of jumping around and teleporting around was kind of cool, but a lot of the other moves that people do weren't really as, I don't know. I guess I'd compare it to like Black Widow in Iron Man 2 or in any of the other movies that she's in. Like, there's some good choreography that they do with her, like using the human body to evoke action and fighting style and how to move around during a fight, or what would be kind of realistic during a fight. At some points, I guess she does a lot of weird things with like wrapping her legs around someone and doing a weird twist. But there wasn't really much of that in this movie.
What I like about how they do Scarlett Johansson's action scenes is that when the Black Widow is fighting, you get to see a lot of the fight. I feel like, especially with this movie, and I don't know about other X-Men movies, but like there was a lot of cuts,
A lot of jump
too
cuts.
many cuts, and so you could never really follow the entire motion. It was like, cut at the beginning of the punch to like the finish of the punch from a different angle, and it's like, okay, obviously those were taken in 2 separate takes with 2 different angles, and they're cut later in post, and it looks fine. It looks like your standard hyper action movie, but they were trying to infuse the movie with tension and action by editing it more choppily, which is the style, but it's not. It doesn't come off as super genuine because it does disengage the audience a little as far as them, being able to see like the entire fight happen. And I feel like there's especially a scene at the beginning of Captain America, Winter Soldier, where Scarlett Johansson's character is in a ship and she's like taking out a bunch of people in an engine room. And like, while they do cut a lot, it's not like a one take, one shot thing. They dwell a little bit longer on the actual action. So you can see her punching all the way through from one shot and watching the guy fall as she turns and starts, punching on the next guy or whatever. It's a little bit more engrossing and involving to the audience as someone who is not a huge fan of action. I'm quite full of critiques when I see bad stuff, because it's like, come on guys, I don't even like this and you're making me sit through this. Oh well.
I guess one last thing I wanted to touch on as well is, I don't know if you scoffed or laughed or rolled your eyes at this scene where Logan is fighting Gambit in the alley, and then he's on the top of the fire escape, Gambit, and then Logan just starts slicing at the fire escape, and it looks like the fire escape keeps on coming down, but then like from the view on top, it's kind of just like, oh, it's shifting sideways. Oh, it's shifting sideways.
It's going back further.
On the bottom, it's just like slice. Like it's been like a mile of fire escape.
And I love how like the fire escape just disappeared. It didn't like, make a huge pile of fire escape pieces underneath him. It was just like disappeared.
It was all turned into dust.
I guess you should just Thanos snapped it. That would have been easier.
Or just cut it down and then he falls down onto the ground. But I guess that'd be too scary for a stunt double or something like that to be on top of some type of fire escape rig and falling onto the ground. But
the number of cuts that they have in this movie, they probably could have just found a body pillow and stuffed it into a shirt and a pair of pants, tied it up there. Would have been fine.
Jeez. So I guess we should. We should definitely.
Last question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the plan? Like, okay, so obviously Disney now fully owns all of Marvel proper, and the proper MCU, and they also own all of Fox, right?
Yes.
Which makes them owner of both the fully owners of the X-Men Marvel franchise and the MCU Marvel franchise. Mm-hmm. Are there plans to like merge the two or like interlace them a little bit? And if so, like what character? I don't know. Like, I feel like there's enough overlap here, but they've also made so many movies already of both of these franchises that you'd almost kind of have to retcon both of them to fit these characters in. Kinda.
I mean, at least with like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think they did really well with WandaVision, kind of showing like things are changing. It's not just Tony Stark and Chris Evans in a room surrounded by a bunch of other characters, and then they go fight the bad guy. There's a lot more breadth and room for new characters and new actors to come in. Like, I mean, they've got it's not Jessica Alba, is it? I forget who's playing in Eternals, but they've got some celebrity in Marvel's Eternals movie. You're just like, I never really thought of that person ever being in a Marvel movie, but here they are. Or kind of, I think I mentioned after the show last week with like Matt Damon in the Thor 2, I think, or Thor 3. Matt Damon, he played the Martian,
yeah, he's from Bourne Identity, right?
Yes. You wouldn't really think of
Jason Bourne in a Marvel movie. Oh lordy!
But I mean, he wasn't he wasn't a main character. He was playing. We'll probably get to it at some point, but he was playing basically. Was it Loki? He was playing Loki in a screenplay in the movie. So they put him in the Marvel movie without making him like a established character like Hela or Thor or anything else. My light is dying, which is the most hilarious thing ever right now. I don't know if you guys can notice on the video.
We should talk to Spark or whatever his name was.
Bolt.
Keep the light bulbs on. Bolt. Spark Bolt, same thing.
Anyways, to answer your question, yeah, it seems like Marvel's going that direction. A lot of people speculate that WandaVision would be the beginning of it, or at least like showing, hey, look, there's X-Men people coming in, and they brought, of course, I forget what his name is, but the guy who plays Quicksilver in the X-Men series. They brought him in, but they kind of just retconned him out of that role in a way.
Ralph Boner.
Ralph Boner. But anyways, yeah, there is plans that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be adopting a lot of these characters. I know, at least from a lot of reports, that Marvel tried getting Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart back as Wolverine and Professor X. But they both said no, basically, because they said, well, we feel that Logan was kind of the nice swan song for our characters. Like, it was the end of that era for our portrayal as these fantastic beings that we got to dip into the lives of. And so they're going to have to find new actors.
And on a high note, unlike a certain TV show. The Office.
Yeah, so they'll probably have to find new characters for that, but there was ideas of the next movie that we're going in, or I guess the next X-Men movie that we're going into, flirts with the idea that, you could just get these characters in because it's younger versions of them, and then by the time that you get them into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're kind of age of when X-Men 1, 2, and 3 were kind of shot, of like, oh, look, it's these characters, but they're older, but you know them because you've seen the other movies. But I don't know. I don't know how they're going to swing him in, but I know that since they're planning on bringing in the Fantastic Four to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they announced that at the shareholder meeting for Disney Plus, or not Disney Plus, but Disney in general, that it makes sense that they're going to be introducing some X-Men soon, because leading with Fantastic Four would be nice because it's kind of the first superhero family in a way. It'll be interesting. But anyways, yeah, what are you looking forward to, at least in the next few X-Men movies, Nick? Does this? I think I already prefaced this by saying,
I'm really looking forward to getting just in the way as I'm sure someone cold on the Star Wars franchise would be a little bit confused how Jedi can jump around and deflect laser beams and whatever. I'm kind of looking forward to the Episode 1, Episode 2 explanation of everything. Like, here's how this universe works. Midichlorians, Jedi have to train. There's this hierarchy. You just can't learn, midichlorians. You have to, be born with it. And I'm kind of looking forward to the X-Men version of that, like, over explanation of it, so I can like figure out this franchise and not have to pester you about it, because I am curious. Like, Origins at the very least has whet my appetite for more X-Men movies. So
at the least,
good on them. I'm now curious enough about all of these characters that I will probably sit through all of them and figure it out. Before I probably wouldn't have, but yeah, now I think I'm just curious enough to want to sit through and figure these all out. So yeah, definitely more information on how their universe works and how it differs from other cinematic universes that I've seen.
Yeah, I'd kind of put on par to think about it, kind of like how Marvel is different from DC with like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of Captain America and Iron Man and that, compared to like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. You kind of have to think of it in that regards with X-Men. It's kind of like their own universe, even though that they're in technically the same comic book universe as Iron Man and Captain America and Thor. They're still pretty much very distant because Fox didn't want to cooperate with Marvel, and yeah. This is kind of that era of like, oh, okay. But yeah, anyways, any final thoughts besides that, Nick?
Well, I think we better end it sooner than later, or we're going to run the risk of going for another hour and 40 minutes, which would add up to the runtime of the movie. So we better end it on a high note here.
Sounds good.
Just like we're supposed to. Well, cool. Thank you, Mike, so much for recommending this, and thank you so much for being able to sit with me patiently as I figure out this whole new cinematic universe. It's pretty fun. I'm excited to learn more about, characters that I've kind of heard of and learn more about them in a more detailed way. So thank you, man. Appreciate it. I've been Nick. Mike, you have been Mr. Model Y.
Thankfully not Maki Mike.
Mucky Mike. Oh, dude, I went to see, you'll hear on the Talos of EV podcast later, but I got to see a Mach-E.
Nice.
And tried really hard to test drive one, but the dealer couldn't find the keys, so.
That's hilarious. So you just
it was terrible. Anyway, that's for a different show. No, we couldn't get it unlocked. Yeah. I hate dealerships. Anyway, I've been Nick. That's Mike. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Take care.